my friends are simps.
A while back, I did a video on the Rode Wireless Go 2, and it's no exaggeration to say that that setup completely changed the way that I record my videos, at least in the sense that it made everything so much easier. Beforehand, I had this needlessly elaborate setup where I had a condenser microphone, which was always difficult to frame with because it had to be close, but it was in the shot and I didn't want it to be. I was recording my audio separately into Logic and then having to sync things up, which was always a pain. I tried using a wired lavalier microphone that I would plug directly into my camera, but that meant I was literally tied to the tripod and so couldn't really move about or anything like that. So when the Rode Wireless Go 2 came along, it was like a come to Jesus moment. Being serious though, it did allow me to be much more flexible about the kinds of thing that I was shooting, and also made doing scenes with other people much more straightforward as well.
Would you recommend Rode microphones, Stephen?
I would definitely recommend Rode microphones, especially the Wireless Go Pro 2. Relatively recently, Rode announced the Wireless Pro, which is ostensibly an iterative upgrade on the Wireless Go 2 with some key additional features. I got in touch with them because I was quite excited about this, and they agreed to send me out a unit to feature, which is obviously what I'm doing just now. Now in this video, I'm not going to go over all of the basics of the Rode wireless microphone systems, because if you want to know that, you can go watch the original video I did on the Wireless Go 2. The Wireless Pro effectively has all of the features of the Wireless Go 2, but with some specifics added in. This is what I'm going to focus on and tell you what I think is most interesting about it and how I'm going to be using it in practice, or how I have been using it in practice, I guess I should say. With that said, the basics of the kit are effectively that you get 2 transmitters and a single receiver. To record audio wirelessly, you plug in your receiver into the microphone input of your camera, and then the transmitters stream that audio so that it's all perfectly in sync with your recorded video. If you're the kind of person that records videos on your iPhone or something like that, you can also plug in the receiver into your phone through the use of a USB cable. There's a bunch of them provided with the kit. However, I am not the sort of person that does that, only because I have the world's crappiest phone that can barely take a photograph, never mind shoot video. So I'm just sticking with my Sony a7 IV, which is the setup I've got here today. Each individual transmitter has got its own built-in microphone, so you can basically just clip it on your t-shirt and go, start recording, which is actually what I've been doing here in almost every other video I've recorded. However, you can also plug in an external lavalier microphone if you want to be fancy and get into the wee nooks and crannies, as it were. Now, one specific feature that the original Wireless Go 2 did also have, but which I think is still worth bringing up or highlighting, is the fact that each individual transmitter supports onboard recording and can store up to something like 44 hours of audio. Now, this is a genuine lifesaver because I can't tell you the number of times that I've sat here and recorded a perfect video talking about music or something, only to realise that I haven't actually turned on the receiver, or maybe not plugged in the cable correctly or something, and so I've not actually got any audio at all. And with the backup recording on board, I never need to worry about that, which is excellent. One of the major features that has been added into the Wireless Pro is the implementation of Timecode. Now, effectively what this does is provide a reference point so that when you're editing your footage later, you can easily and accurately sync up the audio with your clips in post-production. When enabled, the way that this works with the Wireless Pro is to embed the timecode in the audio signal in one of the channels of your recordings, which is also piped, of course, into your camera's recording as well. Now, you might be wondering why you would need timecode at all when you're using a wireless microphone that transmits the audio directly to the receiver and keeps everything in sync anyway. The most basic answer to this is that timecode allows you to more easily and accurately sync up your backup recordings with your video clips and makes them much more useful as a result. Unfortunately, timecode, as useful as it is not supported by all video editing software. So if, like me, you use Final Cut Pro, this means that you're going to have to sync up your clips using some kind of third-party application before you import them into Final Cut Pro, which is a bit of a pain because it means it's an additional step. However, in practice, it's not a huge deal. You can download something like the free version of DaVinci Resolve, which does it for you, and yeah, it might be a pain, but then you've got perfectly synced audio, so it's probably, the trade-off is probably worth it, particularly for more complicated recording scenarios. One cheeky workaround that I found though is that video editing software does often have auto synchronization options, and because the timecode is embedded in one of the audio channels of your recording, you can effectively just use this as the point that the software uses to synchronize things. So even though it's not strictly implementing timecode in the way it should be, I guess it might not be as accurate or whatever, it is a nice kind of hack if you can't be bothered using an additional bit of software, or your software doesn't support timecode itself. Now, the addition of timecode by Rode is definitely welcome. However, there have been some criticisms of the specific means of implementation. If you look online, you'll see wedding photographers and the like complaining about the fact that you can only have a maximum of 2 transmitters per single receiver. The idea being that they have multiple cameras they want to sync up at once. I've also seen some filmmakers that have complained that their particularly complicated setup won't work, perfectly with the Rode system. To me, these criticisms don't actually make a huge amount of sense, because as far as I understand it anyway, this system was primarily designed for more general content creators to provide a kind of affordable way to make video production accessible and efficient. It's not really intended for professional use where you've got very specific technical requirements. And if that describes you, then you should already know that you're going to have to spend quite a bit more money to get something that will do the job. And I don't know why that would be a surprise. This isn't intended for you. The way that I was excited about utilising timecode was when I was out and about shooting video on the go. So for example, if I was taking some street photography videos with a friend, or maybe doing a studio tour or something like that. And in those scenarios, what this means is that I can basically just clip the mics onto myself and my subject, leave them running the whole time, shoot different video clips throughout the day, and then sync them up easily later on without having to, do a whole host of dragging and dropping and stuff like that. This is great because it means that I don't have to leave my camera running all day in order to make sure that everything's properly connected and in sync and everything else, draining my battery down and also recording endless hours of useless footage. Instead, I can just power on my camera and start recording when I want, knowing with confidence that my audio is all ready to go. In theory, I can see why it would be useful to have the ability to add in an additional transmitter, but I'm not really sure how realistic that is at this price point. And to be honest, in practice, this isn't a scenario that I've actually encountered yet. One of the other major features that has been added in this particular iteration of the wireless series from Rode is the adoption of 32-bit float audio technology. Now, I am not going to pretend to even begin to understand the technical reasons for how this works, but essentially what it means in practice is that the onboard recordings are captured in such a way that you've got much more latitude when it comes to processing the files. In practice, what this means is that if you're out there recording with somebody who suddenly erupts with an unusually large laugh that you weren't really expecting, normally this might clip your audio and you wouldn't be able to rescue it. You would have this really unpleasant distortion sound. But with 32-bit float audio technology, you just have to go into your editor, pull the levels down, and it's as if it was never distorted or clipped in the first place. Similarly, if you're recording with somebody and they're very particularly soft-spoken, then all you have to do in post-production is pull up the levels and it doesn't raise the accompanying noise floor somehow. It's like black magic. I am no mathematician or engineer, but it works. So that's all I give a fuck about. As a photographer, I kind of think about this in terms of the distinction between shooting RAW versus JPEG, where with RAW you have much more information to work with and can do much more extensive edits in Lightroom. Now that might not be technically compatible at all, but it helps me understand it anyway. The addition of 32-bit audio is one of my favourite things about the new Rode kit, because I'm the kind of person that when inspiration strikes, I just want to dive in there without having to spend ages setting the levels up and all that kind of thing. And now I don't have to do that anymore because I can just rescue it or at least modify and process it later on accordingly. Now, it isn't just the receiver and the transmitters that have been upgraded. The entire package of what you get with this has also been improved. For a start, whilst you used to previously get this wee neoprene slip to keep everything in, you now get 2 hard cases included in the box. One of these allows you to connect up and also charge all 3 of your devices at once using a single USB-C cable. And this shouldn't be underestimated, because one of the things that I didn't love, or which I found a wee bit of a pain after a while with the Wireless Go 2 kit, was the fact that each had to be charged via a separate USB-C cable. So if you wanted to connect them all up to your computer at once, it was a bit of a nightmare, like where do all these ports go? But now that's not a problem. Well, it's a problem of the past for me. Anyway, this is probably an appropriate juncture to mention the Rode Central app, which I think you can get on smartphones, but you can definitely download for your desktop device. And effectively, what this does is allow you access to not only the onboard recordings, where you can export them in a variety of different formats, but you can also change a whole bunch of really useful configuration options. And this is something that I didn't actually look at for a long time with the Wireless Go 2. Before I realised that, oh, actually, the app is actually quite useful. So don't do me, check out the app, because it's worth looking at. In addition to the fancy charging case, you also now get 2 additional lavalier microphones included, something that wasn't the case before. These have got their own foam pop filters, and they've also got this lock-in mechanism for extra security so that you don't accidentally unplug them from your transmitter, which is something that I have been known to do. The built-in microphones are great on their own, and to be honest, that is what I use most of the time. However, depending on what you or your subject might be wearing, it can be tricky at times to find an appropriate place to clip them onto your shirt or blouse or whatever it might be. To help with this problem, Rode have now also included these wee magnetic doodads, which effectively go inside your clothing and then you stick on the transmitter on top, so they can basically be placed anywhere. And this makes things much easier, and is a problem that I didn't even think to, anticipate there would be a solution for. So thanks to Rode for addressing that as well. This kind of reminds me of the wee magnetic necklace that you would get for the DJI Action 2 camera, if you're familiar with that. So it's a neat wee solution. On top of those notable mentions, there's also a bunch of additional accessories in there, including wind muffs for the transmitters, USB cables of varying types, different coloured clips to identify who is speaking where, etc. And overall, it's just a really nice, well thought out package. It's quite reassuring actually to see that Rode have actively been iterating on and improving things based on customer feedback and experience, so good on them. It's not every day that happens. There are definitely some really useful features of the Wireless Pro that I haven't touched upon in this video at all, such as headphone monitoring, support for headsets, plug-in power, the specific timecode modes and how they operate, etc. But hopefully this gives you a rough idea of the main things to expect if you're looking at buying one of these. If you've already got the original Rode Wireless Go 2 and you're satisfied with it, then there's no need to rush out and upgrade immediately. However, if you've run into some of the limitations of that, particularly when it comes to kind of gain staging, if you're having troubles there, then it might be worth taking a look at these, particularly for the 32-bit float audio. If you're looking for flexibility when you're recording videos and you don't already have a wireless microphone set up, then what are you thinking? You should definitely get one. The Wireless Pro at this point is probably, or almost certainly, the best value for money considering what you get. The onboard recordings, the included lavalier microphones, the 32-bit float audio, the timecode operation, all of that is excellent and makes it well worth the additional 100 quid that you'll pay for this over the Wireless Go 2. Personally, I really love these microphones. They've made my life so much easier when it comes to pumping out shite videos on the internet. And I mean, what other kind of recommendation can you ask for, really? Thanks to Rode, thanks to you, and thank you to the gods of the algorithm for showing you this video. The time has come. You know what to do. You know what to do. You know what to do.